Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam and our non-Muslim viewers as well, welcome to IQRA TV, another program bringing you real talk. I hope that those who've been celebrating Christmas and the New Year, you had a wonderful Christmas and a Happy New Year to all our non-Muslim brothers and sisters who watch this program on a regular basis. And I hope that the New Year brings you more health and wealth and prosperity and peace in your lives and the lives of all other men and women around the country and the world. Today, after this Christmas break, we start afresh, and today I've got somebody many of you will be very, very familiar with, because he's been on this program on a number of occasions to talk about different subjects. A man who is no stranger to many, many young people throughout the country, who has set himself up as one of those guys that people need to look up to. Not that he did it himself, but his profession, his mannerism, his social life, his work life, his ethic, the way he goes around promoting some of the good things in life around the country is itself an inspiration to many young people in our community. Brothers and sisters, I'm really pleased to welcome Akram. But Akram, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Real Talk.
Wa alaikum assalam.
It's nice to have you here. I hope you had a good break.
I did, thank you, and it's wonderful to be here. And
So
thank you ever so much.
You spent a good time with your family, did you? As many of you will know, Akram is an international rugby player. The first, are you the only Muslim so far
To represent England.
who's played for England at rugby, also played for Leeds Rhinos,
I did.
right? And this in itself is no mean feat for somebody who came up from the Leeds community to get into rugby. How did you get into rugby? I mean,
Yeah.
the traditional mindset, the stereotype is that
Yeah.
Asian was going to cricket.
Yeah.
Nowadays, probably football, but never rugby. That was not really the sports of the Asian community. What really attracted you to? I mean, you're built for rugby. There's no doubt about it,
Okay.
right? So, what attracted you to rugby?
Well, that's what they say, that Asians don't play rugby. But
Yes.
far from it. I was very fortunate growing up in Leeds, a stone's throw away from the famous Headley Stadium. My father was a fantastic role model, quite an inspirational for me, who enjoyed sports, and rugby was one of those. And he encouraged me to take part in all sport activities, and
Right.
rugby was something that I took as a natural process.
And how long did you play rugby for?
Well, I started playing when I was 7.
All right.
As a school kid, learned
Right.
my rugby from school, and was pushed after school by my father in the park playground. Well, it depends.
So then, obviously,
how to answer that question? 'Cause I'm still playing now.
Semi-professional. You're still playing now.
Well, on social occasions.
Right.
It's a tough sport. It's a quick
Well, I know
sport.
you play for charitable matches.
Yeah,
and
it's a
things
young
like
man's game now, but certainly put my boots on for a good cause,
that. All right.
charitable occasions and things like that. But for a long time, shall we
Right.
say?
So from the age of 7,
7, yeah.
you've been
upwards.
playing rugby and you've been
Yeah.
enjoying it. Were you
Certainly
attracted
do.
by any other sports as well, like
Yeah,
badminton or
I mean,
cricket?
as most kids, we played all sports: football,
Right.
cricket. You mentioned cricket, marbles.
Right.
Hockey,
That was
rounders,
that was a game of my age, not your age.
twiddle links. Any sport you name it, we took part in it.
Right.
And it's funny, football again. Grew up in Leeds at the time. In the 70s, Leeds were very strong at
They
the
were,
football and rugby. And I actually thought I was going to play football at first. I played for schoolboys, Leeds City schoolboys,
All right.
as well as Leeds City schoolboys at rugby league. So I had the best part of both sports. And
Right.
at 15, I was playing at Ellen Road with a so-called David Batty, who went on to play for
gracious.
England and other teams. But it wasn't to be. And my love and passion became rugby, and still is. And the rest is
I
history.
mean, obviously, not many Asians are engaged in rugby, are they? I mean, from my experience.
Yeah,
We have a small club where I come from called the Batley Rugby League Club.
that's right.
And they've struggled to get Asian people to come and watch the games. And
Yeah.
they've done all sorts of initiatives to try and engage the community to come into rugby and watch the game and bring their children there as well. And obviously it's one of those sports that I think really not touchy-feely to the Asian community.
Yeah,
Right? Football, obviously the young people are getting more involved in football.
yeah,
And more young people are moving away from cricket, unfortunately as well.
yeah.
So that's, people's cultural and trends are changing. But I mean, one of the reasons why Akram is here today is actually, I've been thinking, we've been talking about this in the past few programs, about engaging with young people. We have seen in this part of the world, in the north, particularly in Bradford over the last few months, a number of tragedies where young Muslim boys, particularly from the Pakistani Muslim community, have died through tragedies by accidents on the road. And some of these young people are alleged to be involved in antisocial activity, etc. And we have seen more and more of our young men in particular getting involved in antisocial activity, criminal activity. And we've been talking in the last few programs about what can we do. The Asian community had this reputation from the 50s and the 60s of being very diligent, hardworking. We saved the textile industries and the engineering industries of this country after the war, and people who came here worked extremely long hours to try and make their families have a better future. And somewhere along the line, that work ethic, that diligence, that discipline, that thought of having halal rozi seems to have disappeared. And we're wondering how. And we're looking at role models. I mean, Akram is a role model as far as I'm concerned for young people. But how can we engage more young people to get away from criminal activities, antisocial behavior, etc., and start living as good moral citizens, good Muslims, practicing Muslims within their communities, good neighbors, good citizens, good students, etc. What, in your opinion, I know you work very hard and you worked in schools as well, to try and bring young people into the fold of not just Islam, but also the path of being a good model citizen. What is your experience?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, just to add and to get into and involved in mainstream activities, one of the key things, and I mentioned when you asked me about what got me involved in sport, and I mentioned directly my father, so parental engagement is certainly a big issue for me, and certainly was at my time, with my father being quite an inspiration. And I think if parents in this day took more,
more interest in
and keenness in the children's activities and subjects, it would.
So do you feel that the particularly the fathers have a disconnect with their young people at the moment, because of maybe a language barrier, issues around cultural norms are changing, styles are changing, social medias, we've discussed this before, so is there this disconnect between the parents and the young people, in your opinion?
I think so, and that's not just sort of me saying that. It's when I work in the schools and the communities, I'm speaking to the children and asking them, so what would they like to make their lives better? And the first thing they say is more interaction with their parents.
Right.
The parents, in particular, you mentioned the father working all day long, and they don't get to really see them. They're not taking an interest in some of the activities they're doing. So the children are finding different avenues to focus on what they're doing. And as you mentioned, a lot of it's not really the good things that they should be doing, and they need to be coming away. So we need to draw them back to how it used to be when we were growing up. Although things have changed, times has changed, but we adapt accordingly to that, and we take more of an interest. When we was growing up, it was a case of what our parents were telling us to do, and that's what we did, and we respected that, and that stood us in good stead. I am what I am today because of my father and my mother, and the blessings and so on. However, things have changed now, so it's a case of maybe listening more to our children and wanting to do things that they want to do.
Do you think parents find it difficult to adjust to what young people are trying to say to them in terms of how they see life, which is different to the way the parents saw it?
Yeah.
Is that something that you've come across as well?
For sure. Right. I've got children, 3 children, 2 girls and a boy.
Very good.
Alhamdulillah, and I'm having similar issues with them. And we spend a lot of time with my girls and my boy, and they're still coming up with different ideas to what we were brought up with. And I don't think that's an issue. Hence why I say I think we go with what they want to do. Right. We support them, we guide them, and help them to fulfill their potential. And sometimes I think we've got to get a right balance where we're working together and give and taking a little bit more than what some parents are doing. It's either our way or the highway.
So you think the parents are very fixed in their ideas?
And I think they need to adapt more so. Right. In some of the cases that I've had experience with the children that I'm working with.
So I mean, you worked in secondary school, didn't you? Oasis Academy in Bradford.
Yes.
You worked there for quite a while.
Yes.
And you were probably seen as a good role model there.
That's right.
By young people, right? In terms of counselling for these young people, at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16.
That's right.
What were some of the key issues? I mean, the one thing I find very difficult to comprehend is, if you look at the educational attainment levels of young Pakistani pupils in this area, the girls are doing, mashallah, very well, but the boys are really lagging behind, right? And there's a disparity there about why is it the girls are more motivated, what motivates them, and why is it the boys are not motivated? And are the mothers are more diligent in making sure that the girls are studying, and are the fathers less interested? Is that the science behind it? I mean, your experience of working in those schools, have you come across the same thing, that the girls are doing well and the boys are not?
Well, what's really interesting to that, I think there's two sides of the coin. You've got parents who are really keen and very supportive to their children's education, and they're through thick and thin. Then you've got the other side where maybe the child's upbringing is not the best. There's broken homes, and there's lots of it now, unfortunately, that we've seen. And we're not doing enough to help them. So there's children, boys and girls, who wanted to do well without the parental support because they want to get out of a system what they're in at the moment, and education is the best way to do that for them. So hence when I say two sides of the coin. But either way, they still need support. You know, after the parental engagement, it's the schools. Now the schools' demands on teachers is enough as it is, and it's very, very difficult for the teachers to discipline children as well as support them in academia. The last thing teachers want to be doing is discipline the children when they come to school. For me, that should be done at home. That's where it should come from first, and then it makes the teachers' jobs a lot easier, teaching them and helping to learn and grow as individuals.
I mean, I know, for example, speaking to some of the Darul Ulooms in this country, the principals of Darul Ulooms, they were saying to me that, this is going back a few years, that those young boys who their parents could not control would say, come, bring them to Darul Uloom and say, Zikr rakho, Hafiz banao, Alim banado. So they would devolve their responsibility to these. And I suppose the same thing's happening with the schools as well. That they expect the teachers to do the work that the parents should be doing. So I mean, these are huge issues within our community. And I think, we'd welcome to some thoughts from our callers if you're interested, and if you're going through some of these issues yourself. Because how do we go back to the old values? Although the values may have changed slightly, but we all believe in being good citizens, being good Muslims, being good neighbors, abiding by the law of the land that we live in, making sure that we follow the practices of Islam to the best of our ability. And when he spoke to Maulana Fazl Dad here as well, he suggested the same thing, that the parents need to start taking more responsibility for giving their children a foundation from which they can actually nurture and grow and develop into good role models. Now, in your opinion, I mean, you're obviously a rugby player, former rugby player, still a rugby player, played at the highest level of rugby, internationally. And if you are not looked on as a good role model, we have people in business as well who grew up in this country, who were born in this country, who set up businesses. How can you get those business people to become role models to inspire our young people? I mean, I know you work with some companies as well.
We do, mention Mosaic, but before I answer that question, I think there's not one direct answer about how we can get people on board. I think there's a number of factors why our children are disengaged and lost to mainstream society, and we certainly need to bring them back to the fold. And I think the balance of collaboration with different partners, whether it be schools, you mentioned madrasa, the religious institutions, the parental engagement, businesses who play a large part in bringing our kids, mentoring. We have quite a strong mentoring program with Mosaic. When I was involved with them, we used to go into schools.
We'll have to explain what Mosaic is in a little while. I've been told we're going for a break. Inshallah, so far I hope you've been inspired by this discussion. It is a very important discussion that needs to take place in every home, in every part of this country, because it doesn't just affect the Muslim community, it affects all communities, but it's more profound for our community as well. So inshallah we'll come back. Don't go away. Go and make yourself a tea and coffee or whatever it is that you enjoy, and inshallah we'll see you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.